Ask the same question again. Okay. So your question is, what are those marks on your forehead? Okay. Anybody ever been asked that? Yeah. They all ask you that, right? Okay, so here's two ways of answering the question. The second one is turning the question. Okay? Okay.
What are those marks on your forehead?
It's called T-lock.
Yeah. Could you please explain that a bit further? Elaborate?
That's the same question.
What are those marks on your
That's version 1, okay? Let's do it again. Version 1, okay, ready? Take 2, version 1.
What are those marks on your forehead?
It's called T-lock. Okay? Version 2.
What are those marks on your forehead?
It's called T-lock. This is actually made from clay from one of the sacred rivers in India. Our tradition is a very ancient one. It goes back several thousand years. And explains in our texts, in our sacred books, that our body is like a temple of God. So we mark our body with T-lock to show respect to God and also show respect to our body and how we should care for it. Okay. Okay, what's the difference? Did I answer the question the first time?
No.
Yeah, I answered the question. That's all I did though. Do I really care if the world knows what T-lock is?
No.
You know that it's called, no, I want to get some of my messages across. So he asked this question, and I turn it. I answered the question, but then what else did I tell him?
Few principles.
What else specifically did I tell him?
The body is a temple.
Body's a temple. Ancient tradition. Goes back thousands of years. Okay? So, you want to get your point across. So you know ahead of time, what are your 3 main points? So for instance, somebody might, let's say one of your main points is, I want to talk about our Food for Life program. So they might ask, tell us about the festival that you're holding this weekend. Well, it's a wonderful cultural event. We invite everyone. It's free. One of the things that you'll be experiencing there is free vegetarian food. Actually, vegetarianism is an important aspect of our tradition. In fact, we have the world's largest vegetarian food relief program. Okay? So, I answered the question, but I get my point across. Okay? Now, you can't go like this. One more time. So this is version 3. This would be the worst. Let's give it one more time. Okay? Same question.
What are those marks on your forehead?
We have the world's largest free food distribution. That doesn't work. Okay? That's being dumb and looking like you're brainwashed and whatever. That doesn't work. You can answer the question, and then, you bring around your points. Okay? So that's turning the question. We're going to practice that in a little while. Next.
Maintain a positive, friendly demeanor.
Okay, good. It's important to be positive and friendly, especially on camera, but other times too with reporters.
Smile, smile, smile.
Okay, smiling is very important. Remember, we talked about body language? There's a chart sometimes you may have seen. Some people dispute this, but I think that there's a general consensus that more or less true. They talk about the way we send messages. So, the words we speak, a very small percentage. Okay? The manner in which we speak those words is a larger percentage. The biggest impact of what we say to people is in our other aspects of our body language. Okay, so in other words, I might say to Jared, I really like you. You're a good guy. Okay? Or I can say, forgive me for this, I can say, Jared, I really like you. Okay? He looked a little unsettled by that. Jared, why did that bother you? The tone, the mood, the body language. The words were nice. Jared, I really like you. Okay? Overwhelmed by the body language. Okay? So, I like to do this one. So, Jared, come on up. It's so good. Okay? Now watch the body language compared to the content. Okay, so you ask me, then I'll take the mic. So ask me again. Tell us about the Hare Krishna lifestyle.
Tell us Siddhartha Hare Krishna lifestyle.
Hare Krishna is a very blissful life. And the mantra that we chant puts us in touch with inner levels of peace and happiness. In fact, bhakti is the yoga of joy. And that's why we're here for this festival. And we're inviting everyone to come and taste the same pleasure and happiness that we're enjoying. Okay? So the words are great. It's joyful, it's blissful, come and join us. But the body language, so smile. You gotta smile. And you have to practice it. Because it's a way of communicating. Sometimes people will say, well, it's artificial. But no, if you're communicating, you're having to put energy into the words, isn't it? So why don't you put energy into the body language at the same time? It's just another way of communicating, okay? Yuri, go for it, next one.
Avoid no comments. No comment. Except really good issues.
Okay, basically, don't ever say no comment. Yuri, I want you to respond, no comment to my question, okay? Okay. Similar to what we did the other day. So Yuri, where were you around 9:30 last night? Were you anywhere near the Mahaprasada mantra? Do you know what happened to the cheesecake that we were saving for Maharaj's birthday today? Can you explain the raspberry jam on your collar? Okay, Jared, take them away. You gotta, okay. No comments, like, guilty as charged. So never, ever, ever. If you don't have an answer for a reporter, you can just say, I don't know the answer to that. I'll find out, I'll get back to you. Okay, no comment is like a real no-no. As you can see, thank you, you did that very well. Okay, you can tell me where you made the cheesecake later, all right? Okay, next one.
There's no such thing as off the record.
Okay, we already talked about that. Review these materials. I would suggest when you go home, hang on to this and have this to review. I just did a radio interview 5 days ago. And before I did the interview, I pulled this out. I reread it again for the 100th time, specifically about radio interviews, so that I was fresh in my mind how to maximize the opportunities, okay? So there's pages on what we call keys to success, something about print interviews, then TV or video, then radio. We're not going to read all of these because it's too much to just absorb by reading it. We're going to read a couple pages. So let's go down some of this in the section, keys to success. The introduction, page 14. Be helpful to reporters. It's win-win. You're not adversaries. You want them to get a great story. You want them to publicize what you're doing. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. So be helpful. They've come for a story. That's what they live for. Help them understand the story, how to make it interesting to their readers or viewers or listeners. You can be open, frank, and engaging without revealing sensitive issues. Okay, now let me just mention, we're going to go over this. Some of you, it's the first time you've never done any interviews. This is like top-notch professional stuff. So just absorb what you can. If you have an opportunity to do interviews, you can review this. Every time you do it, you get a little bit better. Okay? So the point is, you don't have to, like, somebody comes in and says, so how are you paying for this festival, Swami? You can answer, honestly, it comes from the congregation. If that's where it comes from. You don't have to necessarily say, it comes from the congregation. Of course, we would have had a lot more money if Mr. Patel hadn't gotten angry with us and pulled back his $25,000 donation. Okay? Do you need to tell him that? You don't need to tell him that. Now, if they ask you about Mr. Patel, you need to be ready to answer that question. That's another thing. But you don't have to give information that isn't helpful. Okay? So, you can be in control without appearing defensive, hostile, or evasive. Okay? It's a friendly exchange, but you're in control. So, let's see. I'll just pick out a few of them on this page. Number 2, the reporter will come with his or her agenda. You need to have yours. What's your agenda? We already talked about it. What's your agenda, Laura? Perfect. Your 3 messages. That's your agenda. I want to get my 3 messages across. Okay? What should be the next number 3?
Do whatever it takes to put yourself in a calm state before an interview. Tips: deep breathing, prayer, squeeze hands and release tension, etc.
I actually edited this as an earlier version. Took that out. But squeezing your hands makes you feel peaceful. Go for it. Okay? Be prepared to turn to questions. We talked about that. Speak with energy, vocal variety. There's nothing worse than interviewing somebody who has no energy. They probably won't even use it. Take your time before answering questions. Brief pauses can be effective. Don't think that you just have to throw out an answer without thinking about it. Okay, you can take a moment or 2. Most of the time these days they're not really going to use stuff live. A lot of times they're going to cut it, chop it, this and that. So you can take your time to answer. 7, maintain a pleasant expression. 8, Anatoly, can you read that one?
Do not repeat or go on to get affirmatively to your false premise or misleading question. Correct the question politely and firmly.
Okay, a little subtlety here. Ray, you've done interviews before? Yeah. Who else? Who's done interviews before? Media. Sometimes, just to find a more interesting story, they'll say things like, Genevieve, tell us about the food and the Christian movement. And she'll, with a big smile, she'll say how wonderful it is. Genevieve, tell us about the music of the Christian movement. Big smile, she'll say how wonderful it is. Tell us about growing up in the Christian movement. Big smile, she'll say everything wonderful about it. Tell us about the child abuse that you had in your society. And you're like, yeah, wonderful music, wonderful culture, wonderful society, child abuse. So, even if it's a friendly interview, you have to keep in mind, reporters are trying to do what? What's their first priority? They want a good story. Do they care if it's a nice story, or a bad story, or a happy story? They just want a story. And if you help them with a happy, uplifting story, fantastic, they're happy. But if they decide that there's something that's not such a happy story, sometimes that's even a bigger story. Okay? I had a reporter one time, I heard her present, big reporter. She said there's 3 kinds of news. There's good news, there's change, and there's bad news. She said the first 2, you call me. The 3rd one, I call you. Well, good story, change, you call me, hey, cover this story. The 3rd one, I call you. She's very straightforward. I had another reporter one time, I heard him, he actually told me directly. He said, we can be friendly, but I cannot be your friend. Why do they say that? Why do they say that? Perfect. It's not like because there's some negative story I'm not going to cover because I'm your friend. So I can be friendly, but don't think I'm going to do you any favors. But I may do favors if it's mutually beneficial. It helps me get my job done, but I'm not going to bury stuff that's negative. Okay. We can read the rest of that page later. I'm going to go to page TV. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do in a few minutes and a little bit more of it tomorrow. So let's just let's start with Nanda Kumar, top of page 16.
Television is a visual medium. How you say things is as important as what you say. The viewer is likely to relax home environment to talk and act in a relaxed manner.
Okay? Yes.
Sitting erect and occasionally leaning in shows enthusiasm. Slouching, showing pace, boredom, or lack of self-confidence. If you are standing, maintain a balanced, ready position. Be reflective,
planted comfortably, knees slightly bent, breathe normally.
There's something about a camera. If you're sitting like this, it looks like this. If you're sitting like this, it looks like this. And if you're sitting like this, it looks like that. Okay? So, everybody just practice for a moment. Sit with your back and your legs at a 90-degree angle on the front of your chair. Feet on the floor, okay? Very, like stiff, like almost unnaturally erect. On a camera, that looks kind of like a normal sitting. So when you're doing any kind of a visual TV type of interview, you have to sit really straight. Very, 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 very important. And also it helps you because then you're breathing. Learn about breathing. You make sure that you're breathing properly and you're kind of like ready. Whatever question they have, you're ready to go. It's kind of like a tennis player. Have you ever seen tennis matches? Somebody's going to serve the ball, they're kind of back there bouncing between each feet. They're ready for whatever comes at them. So if you're sitting like this, you're kind of you're in a ready position for whatever kind of question they're going to ask. And if you allow yourself to kind of slouch, you ask a tough question, it takes you 2 seconds to kind of get back up here, and you've kind of lost the opportunity. Okay? Next one.
There are 2 points of view, yours and the interviewers. Interviewers may be looking for controversy, but do not be defensive. It's your job to get your point across.
Okay? I'll do the next one. Maintain eye contact with your interviewer. Avoid eye dart. Eye dart means that if they're going to be, you look at the person. Usually you can ask them, should I look at the camera? Should I look at the person? Depends on the setting, but you don't want to like be looking all around like Yuri against you know, what happened to the cheesecake? Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure what happened to it. You know, when your eyes move, it just makes you feel like, it makes you look like you're trying to hide something. Okay, so you have to look right at the person or look right at the camera. Next one.
Smile when introduced and recorded. Let us know you consider this a friendly exchange. A pleasant facial expression is a key element of self-preservation.
Nice thing it is.
Preservation.
Both. Both. A nice thing to do when you're being interviewed is you just say, well, you know, thank you, Kunte, I'm happy to be on the show with you. Or thanks, Jill, for the opportunity to be here. Or thank you for inviting me. So again, you start right out, you set a friendly tone. Okay, next.
Avoid non-words such as like, moving, and other.
Well, you did that very well. Okay, yeah, practice not doing that. Okay, next.
Television is fast moving. Comments must stand alone in 7 to 15 seconds. Comments must stand alone in 7 to 15 second sound bites. I understand and ask the risk of being edited and misquoted.
Cross off 15 and put in 7. Getting faster all the time. 7 to 10, excuse me. 7 to 10. You have to answer quickly. They don't like long answers. They're going to chop it. It's not going to be effective. Okay, next one.
Be familiar with your body language, a physical or vocal
Idiosyncrasies. Unique, unusual habits. Okay?
Inhibit your presentation, work to elevate, if they enhance your presentation.
We talked about that, you know, if you like run your hand through your hair, if you like, you know, you're scratching your, turning your ring or whatever. Be aware of those things because on camera they really get accentuated. It takes away from your presentation. 9, I'll just do quickly. It talks about don't give too many dates and figures and numbers on a visual. In print they can read it again, but if it's a visual thing, you want to speak in more general patterns, okay? 10.
Depending on time allotted and the agreement of producers, consider using visuals, props, slides, and video to reinforce your message.
Okay?
Who is 9? Who is 9?
Avoid jargon. If you must use special or technical terms, keep them simple or explain them so your audience will understand.
Okay, so someone says, so tell us, what's the daily life? We'll use this kind of example. What's the daily life of a Hare Krishna devotee? Well, it's those of us that live in the temple community, we get up at Brahma Muhurta hours for Mangala Arti, followed by Tulsi Puja, 2 hours of Japamala, Guru Puja, honor and Prashada, then the Sankirtan Yagya until the Rajboga time. We come back to the Arti ceremony, sometimes left side down for about a half an hour. Return to Sankirtan Yagya, come back for the evening Arti ceremony, Krishna book reading, and hot milk. And they say, yeah, I got the hot milk part. Can you re-explain the rest? So be very aware of those things. So you can just say things. Our first morning meditation service is at 4:30 a.m. But most people know what's a meditation service. Put it in terms of what terms they can understand.
Pre-plan opportunities for B-roll footage, background video,
Okay.
when appropriate.
Yeah, just like, especially because it's a visual thing, so if you can provide them. So you're doing your big, huge cultural event, so you go to the media